Shh, baby. Just another nightmare. Everything's fine. You dozed off.
Right. Anything more than dozed off would be news for everyone.
Alan Wake is one of those games that you play that leaves a mark once you're done. Like a TV show or a movie that draws you in so deep into the story and the character arc that once it's over, you just feel a little empty inside. It's a game that many people have forgotten over the years and perhaps they never even played, but it's definitely something special and it deserves some love. Alan Wake is a third-person shooter from 2010 made by Remedy Entertainment, the same people responsible for the Max Payne games, at least the good ones. It's classified as an action horror title, but it's less horror and more psychological thriller to me and, well, the developer. It has favorable reviews, flaunting an 83 on Metacritic, even listed as the best game of 2010 by Time magazine. And seeing how it had some good competition that year with the likes of Red Dead Redemption, Mass Effect 2, BioShock 2, and even Fallout New Vegas, I say that's a pretty noteworthy achievement, although I can't say that I'd agree. However, that doesn't lessen my love for this game, and the uniqueness of the experience carries a torch all on its own. So let's talk about why this game is a masterpiece lost to time. The game follows Alan Wake, a best-selling author who found fame writing psychological thrillers. He's been struggling with writer's block and decides to get away from the big city to the Pacific Northwest with his wife Alice. They travel to a small town called Bright Falls, Washington, and after settling into the cabin, Alice goes missing. And Alan finds the events from his latest novel coming to life right in front of him, only he doesn't remember writing any of it. There's a darkness that consumes people and objects and tries its hardest to consume Alan to use his skills as an author to make the darkness more powerful. The game is presented in an episodic format like a TV miniseries, even including previously on Alan Wake quick cuts at the beginning of a new episode. Each episode ends with an incredible song from a fully licensed soundtrack that supports the themes from each chapter. Remedy really tries to break the medium of this story. It's a video game that's told like a novel that is presented as a TV show. The mixture of these styles lends a hand to the story as a whole. There is heavy-handed amounts of themes and metaphors Alan Wake covers in its storytelling. It is essentially light versus dark, but it also has symbolism for the creative process when it comes to making art or writing stories or anything that requires a process and perhaps a muse to inspire its creation. Speaking of inspiration, Alan Wake's inspiration is definitely worn on its sleeve. The game radiates Stephen King, even quoting him in the opening title.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear.
The game is even self-aware with it, referencing King multiple times.
I had to figure a way out of this. Any second now and Stucky would be knocking on the door with his axe like Nicholson in The Shining.
But even more so than Stephen King, Twin Peaks is the clear callback this game is making. Both stories take place in a small, seemingly innocent Washington logging town. The coffee shop where the game starts is nearly identical to the one from the show, and it even has park ranger Rusty referencing a damn good cup of coffee.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
Honestly, the amount of callbacks and references to books, shows, movies, music, and even other video games is enough to make a video all on its own, but they all add a neat gimmick or even some humor with their delivery. Unlike the gaudy amount of product placement in this game. You got Verizon, Ford, Lincoln, Energizer, and Microsoft with just in-your-face advertisement. There's even a part of the story where you turn on a TV and you get two full-length commercials. One for a 2010 Ford Mustang and the other one for Verizon. I do have to hand it to Energizer though. For a game where you have to dispel the darkness with light, having to use Energizer branded batteries to power the flashlights is a smart move. Like, that's part of the game. The number one resource you need to survive the game is product placement. That's like if the crowbar from Half-Life 2 was flaunting a big Home Depot logo or something. It's not too terrible though. I honestly just get a little chuckle when I see a product placement. It's almost humorous at how in your face it is. The gameplay is for sure not the gold star of the game. It pretty much plays out like a Resident Evil game. I mean, it's pretty much exactly identical to Resident Evil 4. It's a third-person over-the-shoulder shooter with an interesting mechanic using light. All enemies are shrouded in a darkness that acts as sort of a shield. You must break this darkness with light before you can kill them with bullets. This involves having to monitor battery life of the flashlight and ammo in your gun. So in some cases when you're just getting swarmed by enemies, it can get a little stressful trying to fumble between the two. You can do some sick slow-mo dodges if someone gets a little too close, and you even get some flares and flashbangs to play with sometimes. As interesting as the combat is initially, it does get stale rather quickly. There's only like 3 different types of Taken, the people consumed by darkness. There's the normal guys, the big tanky lumberjacks, and then the speedy meth heads. The other enemies are comprised of birds, inanimate objects that suddenly animate, and a tornado. Combat is essentially boiled down to dropping a flare. As that flare backs off all the Taken around you, you take them out one by one with your flashlight and shotgun. If shit gets a little too out of hand or your health runs low, shoot the flare gun or toss a flashbang. That's every fight once you get the hang of the combat, so like the second episode. The game also retracts from any suspense that the atmosphere gives by slowing time and showing you when enemies are ambushing. It does this 90% of the time. It takes away from any feeling of dread you might have felt over getting attacked because you have a built-in spidey sense.
My spider sense is tingling, but why?
There's the other 10% though, when you're blindsided in a false sense of safety. You might be looting a crate of flares or starting a generator or something, and then all of a sudden you just hear footsteps running at you and it scares the shit out of you.
Fast as fuck, boy.
Some of the traveling is a little padded out. It feels like some of the sequences go on for a bit too long. You can probably shorten the game by an hour or so of walking filler and redundant fight sequences to the same effect of the story, but it's not a huge gripe. Though replaying the game made me realize how much I tolerated certain parts of the game just to get to the wonderful story ahead. The thing that made the gameplay so much better and easier to forgive was...
Wait a minute. I know this.
Oh my god!
You might as well call me an astronaut because you know I love atmosphere. Seriously though, in a single player game like Alan Wake, atmosphere and immersion is what is required to make a good game great. I always go back to Metro 2033, but that game is made on its atmosphere, and Alan Wake is on par with Metro hands down. The Pacific Northwest is a perfect location for the story that they're telling here. Darkness and fog shrouds the small town and the crowded forest perfectly. The whole tone of the game is reminiscent of Silent Hill, an emptiness that is made to feel so alive. The forest is highlighted here. The trees, the vegetation on the ground, the leaves, the fallen trunks and stumps all fill the area in such an organic way, and under the shroud of night it does nothing but inspire pure dread. The wind makes the trees breathe. It makes such an anxiety-driven experience that is beautiful. The theme of light versus dark is incorporated so naturally as well. There are spotlights that you can almost always see from a little ways out. You know that that light is safety, but you also know that you aren't going to make it there without some hillbilly trying to touch you. But the serenity you feel once you get there, the feeling of tension releasing from your body, is something that is difficult to represent in a game, but Alan Wake masters it. It's not an open world game, but it does allow for some exploration, in which you can find TVs that'll play a show called Night Springs, a riff on the Twilight Zone, and radios that play the talkings of the nighttime DJ, usually reflecting on the events that happen as you progress through the game. The world of Bright Falls is made beautifully, a small logging town getting ready for Deerfest, living a life on its own, an ecosystem that you're present in, and immersion just comes naturally.
It seems we have a guest with an intriguing destiny. This place exists between dream and reality, mind and matter.
Alan Wake is simply put a game that will make an impact. It's a game I played in 2010 when released, and it has always been in my head since. It was pretty unlike most games of 2010, the episodic format, the strong story-centric focus, and the horror game title that wasn't a game with jump scares and gore. It stood out and it was praised by everybody, but ultimately it was still forgotten. There was a spin-off game, American Nightmare, which was not nearly as iconic, and a planned Alan Wake 2 that, as far as I know, is full fully scrapped. It's upsetting, not only because the story needs actual closure, but because the demand isn't higher. This game is truly an uncovered gem that not many people got the pleasure of experiencing. The fact that it was an Xbox exclusive probably led to this. For the time it was released, the game redefined interactive storytelling. The only game to do an episodic structure before this was Half-Life 2, and it's a system that the Telltale series went on and used heavily in their favor later on. I think any true sequel potential is dead in the water. Remedy has stated that issues with Microsoft publishing has hindered the game, and they are booked for several years themselves anyways, with new titles including their upcoming game Control. Hopefully the Alan Wake TV series gets picked up by Netflix or something and the story is given justice and, more importantly, an audience. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please know that I appreciate you. I took a several-month hiatus from YouTube due to personal matters, but I hope to start up content again, and I really want to focus on increasing the quality of the videos. So weekly uploads as of now aren't likely, but I will get ideas rolling and try to get things going without months in between. Consider subscribing if you want to see me talk about some more video game stuff, and leave a like if you could be so kind. I do appreciate you. I hope to see you next time. Peace.
Everybody let me hear you say